Okay, so for this recording, I'm going through essay question number 2, right? So it's the 15-mark essay question. Okay. Okay, so this essay question starts off with a preamble saying that the government will spend $3.8 billion on ICT procurement this year, right? Stuff about info communications, as it continues to re-engineer government digital infrastructure and so forth. So basically, you're spending more on technology, lah, right? So they ask you, okay, this is a 15-mark question, by the way, so that's 10 plus 5, right? So 5 is your evaluation, which means that you need to write a conclusion, definitely. Okay, so they ask you to discuss the impact of the rise in digital infrastructure on the country's real national income. So if you want to do like a start and end kind of thing, then your start, it will be here. Right, your ending point is national income. Right. So you imagine, okay, so maybe let's write that down first. So let's say there's a rise in digital infrastructure. And then your ending point is real national income. Let's call it real NY, just to make it simple. So just like, in demand and supply, and then your final destination is P and Q, right? So then you know that in between there must be some kind of econs framework, right? So we've learned ADAS thus far. So therefore, the correct econs framework you should use is actually ADAS. Okay. Okay, so we solved sort of like, okay, so basically the question is asking us like kind of like this red bracket. What they're asking us to fill in the blanks and write an essay's worth from this red color bracket. Okay, so let's try and figure out structure, right? So in the 10 marks, there's an R1 and R2, right? Okay, so let's try and figure out the R1 and R2. Discuss the impact of the rise in digital infrastructure on the country's real national income. Okay, so if you've got a basic understanding of ADS, then you know that this is a component of AD. This is G basically, right? And when G increases, so does AD. And when AD increases, national income should increase lah. So this direction is definitely positive, right? Okay, but this requires some finesse, okay? You also need to know that spending on info communications technology or spending on new technologies will also influence AS. So in other words, it hits your real national income in two ways. It hits your real national income in two ways. It goes through AD, that's the first way, and it also goes through AS, which is the second way. So then that becomes your R1, R2, right? So your R1 is about how digital infrastructure, let's call it Digi Infra, influences AD, and through that gets you to an increase in real national income. So this is the first way, right? Then your second way is how digital infrastructure influences AS and then gets you to real national income. So that's my R1, R2, right? And then of course, because this question, there's an evaluative component. So in between, let's see whether we can find EV1s and EV2s. Okay? If there are, great, right? If there aren't, then we just move on. Okay? Then finally, of course, this one it's a non-negotiable. We want to make sure that we have a conclusion. So then this is our structure. Okay, we're going to start with R1 first, about how digital infrastructure influences AD, and then thereafter influences national income, right? And then after that, we're going to talk evaluate, then we talk about R2. Okay, so let's begin with R1 and EV1 first. So I'm going to stand here. Okay, so like what I mentioned before, R1 use blue, right? Okay, so like what I mentioned before, digital infrastructure will lead to a rise in national income via a rise in AD. So this we mentioned, and that this kind of spending falls under government expenditure. So we know that AD consists of 4 components: C, I, G, and X minus M. So the first thing you want to identify is this is an event, right? So this is the rise in digital infrastructure. This is the event. And so you want to make sure you link the event to a component of AD first. Okay, so this is what this part is trying to do. So you got to identify and say, okay, what does this belong to? And like I mentioned to you, when I was going through all the factors of AD, I told you that G doesn't have any factor. There's 0 factors inside here. And the reason why is because if it's G, it's quite obvious. There's nothing to sort of deduce, right, or discover, right? So given that G is a component of AD, this is a technical term, right? So you want to link the event to the component of AD, like so. Okay, then after you want to make sure that you write this phrase. Whatever is a component of AD, and therefore AD shifts rightward from AD1 to AD2. So these are important. Why? Because this is a key phrase. Cambridge likes this phrase, even though it sounds very trivial, but Cambridge likes it. Okay, and then AD1, AD2, this is your diagram references. Okay, so just like in regular classroom, you just pause the video and just copy what you need. Okay. Okay, next up, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a diagram. Try and push this up without bumping the. Okay, so next one I want to talk about is the diagram. Okay, so whenever you want to do AD/AS questions, there are actually 2 steps, kind of, right? So the first step is to link the event to the component. Usually, sometimes component of AD, let's make it more explicit. So here, sometimes there are technical terms. So I did go through some technical terms with you as I was going through the AD portion of the tutorials. Okay, so you link the event to a component of AD. So for example, if it's interest rates, then the technical terms will be like cost of borrowing and big ticket items, right? But here, it's digital infrastructure, so there's no need for any kind of like fancy technical terms, right? So you just link it to G in this case. Okay, so that's done with step number 1. Step number 2 is to link AD to the macro goal. So our macro goal here is an increase in real national income, right? Okay, so by this linking AD to macro, I don't mean through a phrase. Okay, this one requires a process. In the course of your entire JC education, you will learn a few processes, right? So the price adjustment process is the way for demand and supply to get to P and Q, right? Okay, so what is the process to get from AD to real national income? This is the multiplier process. So in the multiplier process has a shortened form. It's called the K process. Okay, so the way for you to get from AD to real national income is to write the multiplier process. So I recorded a separate video on this. I'm so sorry. Okay, I have to record because I've been falling sick quite often. So but I have recorded a multiplier process video for you, so you can look at it just to make sure you understand it. Okay, so in this video I will show you the proper way of writing it, right? The full-blown so-called price adjustment process in the form of the multiplier. Okay, so you will know that the multiplier process works on the basis that one person's spending is another person's income. Okay, maybe I'll bring you through the multiplier processes, then I'll backtrack and then I'll show you the diagram. Okay, so if there's spare capacity in the economy, a rise in AD will lead to a multiplied rise in real GDP. Okay, what does this spare capacity mean? So I've also went through with you that the AS curve looks like a hockey stick. Right. So when there's spare capacity in the economy, it means that national income can increase. So you are basically on these regions here. Okay. So only in these regions will the multiplier process take effect, which makes sense, right? Because, for example, let me see whether I can change the color. Because, for example, this is highlighter. Okay, so for example, if you're in the black color portions, any increase in AD, you see you can't push the x coordinates any further anymore. So in order for you to push the x coordinates further, you must be on the horizontal range here. Okay, so that's what this first sentence means. That assuming there's spare capacity in the economy, a rise in AD will lead to a multiplied rise in real GDP. Okay, so the multiplier process works by cycles of spending and respending, right? So what this means is that I spend to buy my friend's stuff, which increases the income of my friend. And then my friend will go and buy his friend's stuff, which then increases the income of his friend. And so then there's this ripple effect of spending and respending that increases the amount of goods and services in the economy produced by way more than the initial change that I made. Right. So let's say in the beginning there's a rise in AD from 81 to 82, right? Because there's this spend in digital infrastructure. So what it will do, it will cause planned expenditure to exceed the actual output of the economy. So what does this mean? It means that suddenly, right, retailers like Harvey Norman will realize that how come my warehouse got no more laptops. Everybody's buying laptops and they're flying off the shelves, right? And the buyer is the government. So planned expenditure means that every time Harvey Norman has stocks up their warehouse, they will expect that every month they expect to sell certain amount of laptops. But then suddenly, if this government come in and buy all 10 laptops, then suddenly it exceeds what they actually have in the warehouse. Okay, but you don't write any of that. Okay, what you write is planned expenditure exceeds actual output. But intuitively, that's what it is. So it happens not only for Harvey Norman, but a lot of retailers that stock digital products, right? So planned expenditure exceeds actual output. So firms will experience an unplanned fall in their inventories, right? So again, their warehouses run out, and so they'll increase production by hiring more factors of production. So what does this mean? So Harvey Norman will then go and call up their factories in Singapore and say, hey, can you please produce more stuff, right? Because my warehouses are running low, I need to stock up my warehouses. So then the factories will hire more workers or factors of production, right? So in return, those factories will pay more factor income to households. What does this mean? It means that the workers working in those factories will get larger bonuses because they are working overtime, right? And so then national income rises, right? Because as those workers get more money, they have more income. So national income will rise as a result of, if you realize at the beginning, the government spending more. Okay, so now the government, G, has sort of passed on some money to the first guy, right? So this is $1, right? $1, okay. Then the first guy will receive the income, right? And then they will spend a portion of it on consumption. So this guy, this dude over here, let's draw a different color dude. So let's say this dude will then spend a bit on he will spend a portion of it on consumption, but the rest he'll withdraw as savings, taxes, and imports, right? So some of it he will save, some of it he will get taxed, and then some of it he will spend on imports. But the remaining, so let's say 50 cents, he will spend on the red guy's stuff, right? And so this rise in induced consumption will lead to another round of unplanned fall in firms' inventory. So let's say the red guy is a supermarket, right? Then the supermarket suddenly realize, how come all my groceries all no more stock, right? And then the supermarket will go and call up their factories, the groceries factories, and then they will increase production and hire more FOPs. Then national income will again rise by 0.5, right? So what then of course what happens is that there will be ripples out, so the red guy will spend on the orange color guy stuff by 0.25 and so forth, right? So what you will see is that they will trigger cycles of spending and respending, which will continue all the way. It will continue all the way until this number reaches 0, right? But then you cannot write until this number reaches 0. So what you write is total withdrawals equals total injections. Okay. So then, as a result, what happens? Real GDP rises from Y1 to Y4. Okay, what you notice is that Y1 to Y4 is different from 81 to 82. Okay, so in our ADAS diagram, we will draw multiple shifts. Okay, but before that, this whole thing, you must memorize. I'm sorry to tell you, but you must memorize. As it is. Okay, please don't go and summarize anymore. This is as short as it gets. It was actually longer, but I shortened it. You must memorize this. This is the price adjustment process of a macro. Okay, I'll say it again. You must memorize this. Okay, it's as important, if not more important, than the price adjustment process. Okay, so I told you that I will cycle back to talk about the diagram, right? Okay, so in our diagram, how will you draw it? So we want to start off by drawing, can we draw in black, okay? So it's clearer. Okay, so the y-axis is general price level. Okay, GPL stands for general price level. And then your x-axis is output. It stands for real national income. RNY stands for real national income. You don't have to write all this, what this stands for, okay? You can actually write the short abbreviated form, it's no problem. Okay, so then we will have an AS curve that looks like a hockey stick. Okay, so you realize also that I drew the x-axis very, very long. And the reason why is because I want to do multiple shifts. So I will draw longer. Okay, so because I'm going to do multiple shifts, right? So I'm going to draw like super long. So then I'm going to call it an AS curve. So that I got more runway to do the shifts later. Okay. Okay, so then you see here I said that they must imagine that the country has spare capacity. So you cannot anyhow put your AD, okay? You cannot put your AD like on the is that a laser pointer? Okay, I actually don't have a laser pointer. Okay, you cannot put your AD on this region over here. Right. What you want to do is you want to put it in the green color region over here. Because then it shows that you got spare capacity, that you can increase your national income further. If you put it in a red color portion, then you have no spare capacity lah, right? Okay, so you're gonna start putting the AD. So the first AD curve is AD, let me check, AD1, okay? So then don't draw the red and green highlights, okay? So Y1 here. Okay, so AD1 will increase to AD2, okay? But for AD2, because it's not the terminal AD, right? The terminal AD is AD4. Right, the terminal AD is 84. So if it's not terminal yet, right, so we want to put it in dash. So then AD2 is here, Y2 is here. So there's an initial increase by the government from AD1 to AD2. Right, and then of course the people who work in the IT industry will go and spend to buy things in the supermarket, for example. Right, so then that shifts to AD3 again. Okay, so but you notice here, right, this gap is smaller than this gap. Okay, gap B is smaller than A, which makes sense lah, right? Because the gap B occurs after this first guy has already saved, spent on taxes, and spent on imports. So only 50% gets transmitted to the next guy. So only 50% gets transmitted, which means that the next shift, B, has to be less than A, right? And then subsequently, you stop all the way here, so AD4. Then you can see again, C is less than B. Okay, and then finally we end off at Y4 here. Okay, so in between, right, the shifts, you can put it in dashed. But the terminal one you put it in solids. Okay, then we label, just keep the prices constant at P0. I don't like students who sort of draw it all the way until they hit the change in prices. I don't like that. So I prefer that you don't do that. Just keep everything horizontal on the same horizontal line and draw the line longer. Okay, so that's what you have for the multiplier process. Okay, so I want to iterate again. When you want to explain how AD affects national income, you want to first link the event to the component of AD. If there are technical terms, please use it. After that, draw the diagram. Okay. And then after you draw the diagram, because the macro goal is national income, you need to write the multiplier process. So please memorize this and write the whole multiplier process.